fans, welcome to the second episode of the Fear the Bait podcast. I'm your host, Danny Morales, and before we get started, I just want to give you guys a big thank you for all your support for the first episode that released last week for Buccaneers content released during the offseason. It received a lot more traction than I thought it was going to receive on YouTube and X and social media, and I just want to thank you guys for all your support early on. And I look forward, hopefully, to your continued support as I try to provide you with the best Buccaneers content that I possibly can. Last week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers held mandatory minicamp. That was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of last week, 3 days. What I'm going to do here today is I'm going to break down each one of those days, explain to you who are the injured players, who are the highlight, the standout players, who picked off who, what do you need to know from those 3 days. As now, of course, mandatory minicamp is over, and the Buccaneers are in a 6-week break from now to July 24th. That is the start of training camp. But during voluntary OTAs, a lot of Buccaneers fans were concerned. They had one big question on their mind, and that was Hassan Reddick going to show up? Was Hassan Reddick actually going to show up for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice, eventually play with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? And the short answer we learned is yes. All right, he showed up. Now, for most fan bases and most instances, that wouldn't even be a question. Of course, he's signed a player, he shows up. But knowing about what happened last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Randy Gregory, where they signed the veteran pass rusher and he doesn't show up, eventually they were able to avoid his contract. And last year, what happened with Hassan Reddick, where he gets traded from the Philadelphia Eagles to the New York Jets, and he wants that big money contract. He thinks since the Jets are giving him, spending a lot of draft capital on him, that they're going to end up, giving him that big money contract, possibly for him. He's a man who's at that point close to his 30s. Now he's in his 30s. Will he get that big money contract? That might be his final big money contract that he could receive in his career, and the New York Jets decided not to sign him to that extension, and that got him a bit upset. Of course, he decided to hold out, not show up for the offseason, not show up to the start of regular season. There was one point when he was in Japan. All right, Japan's a place I want to go to. He's in Japan instead of being with the team, with the New York Jets at the time. But day one, he shows up, and all those concerns are put to rest. All those nerves are put to rest for Bucs fans. He's there. He helped out the team a lot in just 3 days alone. If you hear Todd Bowles talk about him, and you hear the young pass rusher in his second year now from Alabama, Chris Braswell, talk about him, he's a guy who provided early on, just in 3 days, a lot of veteran leadership for that pass rush group and for the defensive line also, since he's connected there, rushing the passer. But you hear Chris Braswell talk about him, and, he's pulling guys aside. He's telling them, for example, the young pass rushers, when you rush a passer, act like you're fighting in a phone booth. Stay tight on the offensive lineman. Don't try to create too much separation. You want to stay close. You want to be able to work the offensive lineman. Fight. Act like you're fighting in a phone booth with those offensive linemen. And that's one of the tips. But he's been working very closely with those young pass rushers in that room. And again, the Buccaneers, early on in the offseason, you look at that pass rush room, and it didn't look good. That looked like a possible weakness for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But now it looks like it could be a very possible strength. When you see guys like, of course you have starters, Yaya Diaby, Hassan Reddick, but behind them, you have Chris Braswell, who's in his second year, who's entering his second year. You have Anthony Nelson, who the Buccaneers decided to re-sign. He's very quality depth. You have Jose Ramirez. You have the rookie fourth-round pick, David Walker, also in that room. There's a lot of, and Jose Ramirez, there's a lot of young pass rushers in that room who can be molded by a veteran like Hassan Reddick, who is really a sack master if you look at all his years, most of his years before last year with the New York Jets, where he didn't produce at the level that he normally produces at. But day number one, it starts off with the Buccaneers training inside, practicing inside. There was inclement weather. They had lightning, dark clouds above. So for player safety, Buccaneers and coach safety, they moved everything inside. And inside, you got to see, Peter Report posted it on X, I believe Instagram also. You got to see the Buccaneers' top 4 pass rushers working together with Charlie Strong and warming up and practicing for the very first time. Of course, Hassan Reddick on one side, you got Yaya Diaby on the other, and inside you got Vita Vea and you got Kalijah Kancey. And that pass rush combo, all those 4 guys together, they can stay healthy. I think that's going to be a problem for opposing offenses. That's a group that can really probably get after the quarterback. Todd Bowles doesn't have to blitz as much if he has those 4 guys healthy. You can rush with 4 and hope that also with the new defensive backs, you got Benjamin Morrison, you got, of course, Zion McCollum back in a contract year. Jacob Parrish, who has been a standout guy. We'll talk about him later. Standout DB for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hopefully, you can rush with 4. You have those DBs playing man-to-man, and, the pass rush is going to help out those young DBs in the back there, okay? But, of course, the Buccaneers, like I stated, they start off indoors, then they move outside once the weather passes. And when the Buccaneers went outside, the media and everybody was able to see for the very first time big screens that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers they created outside. They built outside, and those screens are to be an alternative. Those TV screens to be an alternative to player tablets. So normally players will look at pictures or videos of what happened in previous plays, but now they can just look up. Once a play ends, they can look up and they can see exactly what happened. Why did I miss this pass? Why did this wide receiver beat me? Why couldn't I rush the passer? What could I have done better? They can just look up and see the play replaying until the next play starts. So I think that's going to help out the Buccaneers a lot. That's a very good investment to have at the practice field moving forward. Also into the regular season, guys don't have to look at their tablets. They can just easily look up and see exactly on a very big screen what happened during that play. Why didn't they succeed? Injuries, or why they did succeed. Injuries. Who was out for day 1? And some of these guys were out all 3 days. You had Tristan Wirfs, the star, superstar left tackle. He was out with a knee injury. That looks more precautionary. If you listen to Todd Bowles, it looks like he's probably going to be okay for the start of training camp July 24th. But he had a brace on his right knee. Chris Godwin, of course, who suffered that dislocated ankle injury in Week 7 against the Baltimore Ravens. You had the rookie pass rusher David Walker. He was out with a hamstring injury. Trey Palmer, Michael Pratt, both nicked up. Trey Palmer does return for day 2, but he was out for day 1. Michael Pratt, who's competing with Kyle Trask for that quarterback 2 position, he was nicked up, not able to practice throughout all 3 days of mandatory minicamp. And another notable player who wasn't able to practice was Sua Opeta, who, of course, last year during training camp, he suffered a torn ACL. He was not out there for any of the first 3 days. Let's see if he's out there for training camp. But those were the guys who were not available for day 1 of mandatory minicamp there. So day 1, you have the Buccaneers, according to Jen Lane, a lot of Buccaneers earned a lot of sacks. He had Reddick, who earned a sack working against Luke Goedeke, and he got a would-be sack on Baker Mayfield. You have Elijah Roberts, a rookie at SMU. He got back-to-back sacks, according to Jen Lane. He's a young pass rusher who the Buccaneers are really excited about, 5th-round pick who can be a quality depth piece for the Buccaneers if he's able to learn the playbook quick enough. And then you have Anthony Nelson, who also received the sack, earned a sack on day 1 of minicamp. Special teams, you had Tez Johnson, you have Emeka Buka. They're working on punt returns. Now, both of those guys received a lot of praise. Emeka Buka, throughout the first 3 days of mandatory minicamp, he was really put in a lot of different positions. You hear Todd Bowles talk about the fact that guys are out and he knows the playbook. He knows basically at this point every wide receiver position. So they're getting him as many reps as they can everywhere that they can get him at the wide receiver positions, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, on this offense. Tez Johnson was a guy also who, of course, that rookie 7th round pick who was a standout player during the mandatory minicamps here. Baker Mayfield, Todd Bowles, Rachaad White, Tyke Smith, they all talked to the media after day 1 wrapped up. Baker Mayfield talked about Emeka Buka being a versatile player who knows like I stated, all the wide receiver positions already. And the offseason mandatory minicamp and the training camp's not even here. And here he knows all the positions that he's going to be playing, all the spots. Baker Mayfield says he's already a pro. He's a pro's pro. Now, Baker Mayfield, when he was talking to the media, he hinted at the offense. He was asked about the offense possibly being more vertical this year, something we saw under Bruce Arians, but not as much over the past 2 years with Dave Canales as the offense coordinator. Of course, last year, Liam Cohen as the offense coordinator. We haven't seen that vertical passing game as much with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It looks with Josh Grisard as the offense coordinator this year, we're going to see a lot more deep shots down the field, and that adds an explosive and exciting element for the Buccaneers Buccaneers offense. Now, who's going to be that speed guy down the field? Will Tez Johnson be that? He's not necessarily his 4.51 speed. He's not necessarily a speedster, but he does have good football speed. You have Trey Palmer. He's fighting for a spot on this team, who is a speedster there, a bit of a speed demon. But is he even going to make this roster? We'll see. He also shouted out Jake Majors, the center out of Texas. He was the undrafted free agent. Talked about how mentally strong he is. In this offense, it takes a lot to learn the center position. We saw that with last year with Graham Barton, but he's taking everything head on. He's trying to do the best he can there. The Buccaneers also, quarterback Baker Mayfield, who explained that the goal this year is not just to win another NFC South division title for the 5th year in a row. The goal is to do a deep playoff run, go into a deep playoff run and chase a Super Bowl. He has that Super Bowl or bust mindset. When you hear Rachaad White talk later on, he talks about the Buccaneers after the way the season ended last year with the loss to the Commanders in the first round of the playoffs. The Buccaneers are starving. That's what he says. They're not hungry. They're starving, okay? They want to go out there and they want to do a deep playoff run. They want to chase a Super Bowl. That is their goal this year, to end with a ring. Everybody has kind of that Super Bowl or bust mindset here, it appears. Rachaad White, when he talked to the media, and when you see pictures from the first day of mandatory minicamp, you see a very slimmed down Rachaad White. Of course, he's a guy who's entering a contract year. He lost the starting position last year to Bucky Irving, the rookie, phenomenal rookie from Oregon. But he slimmed down a bit from 220, 221, and he's all the way down to 212. He feels better at 212. He feels a bit faster, a bit more agile, a bit quicker. But he slimmed down, and it's visibly noticeable there. And he believes that this is what's best for him going into that contract year, being able to play loose, being able to provide the Buccaneers with that backup to Bucky Irving, that 1-2 punch that they're looking for, and possibly that 1-2-3 punch if Sean Tucker also gets a shot here to get more reps into the season. Todd Bowles talked about rookie undrafted free agent J.J. Roberts. He was pretty pretty high on him. He talked about he's as fast as a corner, but he can hit you like a safety, and he plays safety pretty well. Of course, J.J. Roberts was one of those guys who Todd Bowles had talked about who could be possibly in that nickelback competition with guys like Zion McCollum, Tyke Smith, Jacob Parrish, Christian Izien. J.J. Roberts, undrafted free agent, has impressed so far. We'll see what he continues to do into training camp and preseason once it gets here. Jacob Parrish, with Christian Izien out, he was out. Jacob Parrish got a lot of playing time at nickel corner. He impressed. Todd Bowles did say he dropped a pass. He dropped what would have been a possible interception. He dropped that there, but he's been standing out. Mike Evans in day 3 talked about Jacob Parrish as a guy who's everywhere on the field. He's got one of those guys who is really he's putting himself in a position to start at nickel corner on day 1 here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tyke Smith also talked to the media at the end of day 1. He talked about that transition from rotating from nickel to safety, and he talked about one of the main things that he had to learn this offseason, and he's leading on Antoine Winfield for, is learning how to be more of a vocal leader out there on the field as a safety. You have to be, more. You have to communicate more. You have to be more vocal on the field, and that's something that he's really working on. We'll see how that plays out. The Buccaneers, they've kind of been, not 100%. It feels like on this transition from nickel to safety for Tyke Smith. We'll see what happens with that, but I believe he'll be able to be more vocal, communicate better on the field, and he'll be able to, solidify his spot as a starting safety on this team. He talked also about Savasier Dennis. Savasier Dennis being a game changer. He sees him as one of the game changers for this team already. And he believes that if he continues to develop Tyke Smith, that he also wants to be one of those game changers also for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is his goal, to be a game-changing safety for the Buccaneers heading into year 2 for him. Now, day 2 of mandatory minicamp, you have the DBs showing off in day 3. You have Jamel Dean, who again is competing with those rookies, Benjamin Morrison with Jacob Parrish for a starting a cornerback 2 position. He's competing and he's showing out. He got a pick 6 on Baker Mayfield, according to Jenna Lane. 2 other DBs got a pick also. Zion McCollum, of course, he's starting corner, got a safety. And then Roman Parodi, he's an undrafted free agent. He also got a pick on day 2 of mandatory minicamp there. So 3 interception day for the Buccaneers defense there. Pretty good. The Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, have stated that he wants ball hawks. He only had 3 interceptions with his defense last year. This is 3 in one day. Of course, his practice, they're out there with shorts and t-shirts. But this is a good sign that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're getting better at catching the ball and creating these interceptions, these turnovers that really change games. Most games come down to 1 or 2 plays, and if you can cause a turnover, of course, that increases your chances of winning. Trey Palmer, like I spoke about, he missed day 1. The speedy wide receiver, he missed day 1. He was back for day 2. You had Todd Bowles, Hassan Reddick, Luke Gadecki, and Chris Braswell all talk to the media after day 2 practice ended. Todd Bowles talked about Jalen McMillan. Early on, he started talking about him. Jalen McMillan, he bounced back from what appeared to be a rough day 1 of practice, dropped 2 major passes, but he was heavily featured in day 2 of practice here, and he showed out, and he showed why he probably is going to be the wide receiver 3, possibly wide receiver 4, but he's very high up on that depth chart behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, of course. He talked about Luke Gadecki getting stronger. He understands the weight room better. He understands the entire program better. He's better at conditioning. He's better at keeping his body ready for the season. He talked about Emeka Egbuka, of course. Again, he knows all the spots already. He's a rookie. He's a first-round pick, but he already knows all the spots on this offense. He knows exactly where to be and where he should be. So he's a rookie who already seems like his head is fully into the playbook, and he's trying to do everything he can to make sure that Buccaneers know that they drafted the correct player with Emeka Egbuka. Kyle Trask. He talked about Kyle Trask. Todd Bowles did. He talked about Kyle Trask. He has some very, very good deep balls in practice, but he needs to limit the turnovers. So turnovers are something that he needs to limit there. We'll get to see Kyle Trask this preseason as he's continued to progress. He's in year 5 now. We haven't seen him really during the regular season. You don't want to see him, of course, because that means Baker Mayfield is down. But he looks like he's continuing to improve and progress as a quarterback. But again, he needs to limit those turnovers, is what Todd Bowles says. Tez Johnson, he raved about Tez Johnson. He talked about the fact that he's more than just a punt returner. We saw him doing punt returns, in the first few days of minicamp, and he's more than just a punt returner, according to Todd Bowles. According to Todd Bowles, Tez Johnson, the 7th-round rookie, is looking to play himself into a vital role into this offense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Think about a vital role for a 7th-round pick when you already have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, and Emeka Egbuka on this wide receiver core, and then you have Tez Johnson, who's working his way into, if he continues to progress and trend in this direction, he's working to become a vital part of this offense, according to Todd Bowles. So if you play fantasy football, you might want to keep an eye on Tez Johnson, see what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do with him during the season here. He talked about Logan Hall, who's also entering a contract year. Talked about the fact that out of all the players, he's probably one of the players who's had the most productive offseason. He looks a bit quicker. He's understanding his job a bit better, of course, as he's entering his 4th year. He had 5 sacks last year, but they believe that they can work with him on his unlocking his pass rushing moves better and possibly get him more sacks, put him in positions where he can be able to get to the quarterback even better. Hassan Reddick, he talked about the fact that he's quick, he's savvy, he's already off to a strong start. Hassan Reddick, of course, got to talk to the media. He loves this team. He loves the energy. It looks like, of course, already. He talked about the 2 tackles that he's going to go up against. He only got to go up against one, Luke Gadecki, in mandatory minicamp. But once training camp starts, if Tristan Wirfs' knee is good, it looks like he's going to be able to go up against both of those tackles. Talked about iron sharp as iron. This is very good competition for the offensive line and the defense to be able to go for the offense to go up against Hassan Reddick, a veteran pass rusher who knows how to play in the NFL, who knows how to get to the quarterback. And for the defense, this is very good for Hassan Reddick and all those young pass rushers to learn how to get to the quarterback when you have to go through guys like Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gadecki, how to get to the quarterback with some very tough protectors of the quarterback there with those 2 guys. He explained that, Larry Foote, since Larry Foote was the inside linebackers coach when Hassan Reddick was a rookie, so they formed a bond there and a relationship there. And he explained that he was one of the reasons, Larry Foote was, why Hassan Reddick decided to come to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Besides looking at the team and who was on the offensive side, who was on the defensive side, Larry Foote was a big influence. Another influence Hassan Reddick stated was the fact that this year the Buccaneers faced the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Eagles, and the Jets, all 4 teams that Hassan Reddick has played for in the past. He stated, it would be a lie if he said, he didn't want to face those teams. And one part of the reason why he shows the Tampa Bay Buccaneers out of all other teams to play for this year. So he's looking forward to play against his former teams. We'll see how he does, but he looks like he's in very good shape. He's healthy. He's motivated to show the NFL that, he can still get to the pass rusher, and he could still be one of those top tier pass rushers in this league. You had Luke Goedeke talk. He talked about, of course, the quickness, the great hands, the power of Hassan Reddick. He's a tough matchup. He shouted out some of the undrafted free agent linemen. Ben Chikuuma, big 6'6", 310 offensive lineman from Georgia State. We'll get to see him more in the preseason play. You got Jake Majors. He caught him out. He's one of the standout offensive linemen, young offensive linemen so far. Mentor in minicamp, and he talked about Charlie Heck, the veteran swing tackle who the Buccaneers signed in free agency. He talked about him being fundamentally sound. He knows, he's a pro's pro. He knows exactly what to do on that offensive line. On day 3, he actually filled in for, and I believe day 2 also, he filled in for Tristan Wirfs at left tackle. Goedeke talked about the trash talk. There's a lot of trash talk early on. Todd Bowles has stated that you can't trash talk if you don't know your role in this defense or offense. If you don't know what you're doing, you can't trash talk. And Anthony Walker Jr. has been a guy who's learned very quickly his role on this defense and this playbook, working closely with Levante David. We'll talk about his relationship later on when he gets to talk to the media on day 3. But he's a big trash talker, Anthony Walker Jr. is, and Luke Goedeke is a big fan of it. He likes the energy there, and he talked about Anthony Walker Jr. He's going to get it in the future, too, where Luke Goedeke is going to start talking trash to him later on. Another big thing of note here is that because of the concussion history of Luke last year, he's going to continue to wear the guarding cap, which is a cap on the helmet, to prevent further concussion injuries in the future. Chris Braswell got to talk to the media, and he talked about, the veteran leadership that Hassan Reddick has already brought in those first 3 days. He wants to get his weight down. He was playing at 260, 261 last year. Wants to get down to 255, be a bit slimmer, be a bit leaner, probably have a better bend, and be a little bit quicker to get to the quarterback. He's working on improving his hands, mixing up his pass rush moves, not only going in with power and trying to bull rush or trying to, power his way to the quarterback, trying to be a bit more versatile in his pass rush arsenal there. You have the goal of the defense is to get 30 sacks as a group. The pass rush to get 30 sacks as a group. He believes there's a lot of high competition there, of course, like we talked about. You got David Walker, you got Yaya Diaby, you got Jose Ramirez, Hassan Reddick. There's a lot of depth in that pass rush group, that edge group, and we're gonna get to see it on full display in training camp and the preseason, of course, in the regular season. And then lastly, you got day 3 of OTAs. Day 3 was the lightest of all 3 days. The Buccaneers decided to have a very light day. It was about an hour of practice. Players were swapping jerseys, and Anthony Walker Jr. explained later on that if, for example, he was wearing Levante David's jersey, so if he made a mistake in Levante David's jersey, Levante David would have to pay the fine or whatever the penalty is for making a mistake on the field. Vita Vea, Jose Ramirez, they also swapped jerseys, so you got to see Vita Vea in a Jose Ramirez 33 jersey, and you got to see Jose Ramirez in the big, the very big 50 jersey that Vita Vea wears. But again, it was a very light day of practice. They saw this as a way to make sure that it's not a mundane practice. They get to keep the energy up, keep the competition up, because again, if you make a mistake in somebody else's jersey, that person has to pay the penalty, and everybody's on top of each other, making sure they don't make mistakes. Baker Mayfield got a vet rest day. Of course, Tristan Wirfs was still out. They hope he'll be okay and ready for the start of training camp July 24th. Who got to talk to media? Todd Bowles very briefly talked to media, talked about how the fact that the team trusts Kyle Trask. We haven't seen him, of course, but they trust him. He said preseason will be big for him. He'll be able to get a lot more reps in the preseason. Bucky Irving got to talk to the media, and he talked a lot about the relationship that he has with Rachaad White. He talks about the fact that, there's competition in the room, but there's good energy in the room, also in that running back room with the undrafted rookies, Sean Tucker, Rachaad White. The game started to slow down for Bucky Irving. He started to explain that's one thing that he's noticing this offseason. Later on, what happened at the latter end of the regular season last year, the game slowing down for him. He feels like that's going to help him grow. He could play at a faster speed. He has a very tight bond with Rachaad White, and all the noise, all the the questions from the media, none of that is going to affect their relationship. He states there. Bucky Irvin's used to a big, a competitive running back room. He was at Oregon where it's a deep room. So he understands, coming into the Bucs, he already understood that he's just going to do the best he can when he gets the time. But he's going to also motivate the guys in that room to do the best they can also. He talked about Tez Johnson. So this was an interesting nugget here. He talked about Tez Johnson. After games, he would call up Bucky Irving, and he would explain that he wants to play for the Buccaneers. That's his dream. He wants to play for the Buccaneers. And, of course, now, 7th-round pick, he is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver. And, again, at the end of the draft, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected him, you hear that phone call between him and GM Jason Light, and he explains to Jason Light, he tells him, what took you guys so long? What took you so long to pick me? And Jason Light explains, we didn't have a 6th-round pick to pick you, but it seems like that would have been the 6th-round pick, Tez Johnson, if they had one there. But it was a dream for him to play for the Buccaneers, and he gets to live out that dream now. He gets to be with one of his best friends, if not his best friend, Bucky Irving, who they already have, good camaraderie there between the two. Bucky Irving was asked about what are his personal goals for this year. What are his goals? Is he, looking to get another 1K season, 2K scrimmage yards? What's his goal? He didn't say any personal goals. He only explained that his goal is to do the best he can for the Buccaneers and to win as many games he can for the Buccaneers. Help them win as many games as they possibly can. You had Anthony Walker Jr., who is the linebacker that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed from the Miami Dolphins. Remember, Buccaneers signed Anthony Walker Jr. from the Dolphins, and then KJ Britt, who was, for much of the part last year, the starting linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Once Savassi Dennis went down, he went down to play for Miami. He signed with them this offseason, so kind of a swap there. But he's a big chirper. He's a big trash talker. Anthony Walker Jr. is. He wants to bring that energy. He's not doing it in a malicious way. He just wants to bring energy and competition to both sides of the team. He talked about Baker Mayfield. He worked with him when Baker Mayfield was very young, his rookie year, early on in Cleveland, and he talked about Baker Mayfield being a more mature guy. He's still chirpy. When he talk trash at Baker Mayfield, he's going to talk trash right back. He still brings that energy, but he's a much more mature guy, he explains, as he's in his 3rd year now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When asked about the pass rush room, which we talked about earlier when we talked about the starting 4, Vita Vea, Kalijah Kancey, Yaya Diaby, Hassan Reddick, when asked, how does he feel getting to work with that group, with those top 4 pass rushers, all he did was smile and say they're going to be very fun to watch. We'll look forward to see what they can do. Again, if they can stay healthy, those top 4 guys can stay healthy, they're going to be very interesting to watch, and to see how many sacks they can all get collectively is going to be interesting as well. In a nightmare for opposing offenses. Anthony Walker Jr. also explained that he wants to be a coach in the future. So he's been doing some high school football coaching with his dad's team down in Miami. He's not going to do it this year, and he's a little bit thankful and happy that he's not going to do it this year. But one day he wants to coach in the NFL. Maybe he'll be like a linebackers coach or a special teams coach. We'll see. But he also talked about Cade Otton, and he talked about Cade Otton being one of those guys that he's already tired of. Cade Otton, who's entering a contract year. Will the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sign him early, try to get ahead on his contract, which, the market could explode for tight ends next year, and you might have to pay a lot more money for Cade Otton than you would have to if you just sign him now. Would they let him play out the season, test free agency? A lot of questions there with his contract, but It's not a concern most likely for him right now. He's just focused on football. But Anthony Walker Jr. talked about K. Dalton being one of those savvy guys. He's a savvy route runner. We already know he has natural hands. He's a dependable pass catcher. Think about last year when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down. Who was the go-to guy for Baker Mayfield? It was K. Dalton, tight end 1 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he's already beat him a couple of times. K-Don has in some routes. So Anthony Walker Jr. is looking to forward to continuing to work and compete against K-Don. And lastly, who's the last guy to talk to media on day 3 of mandatory OTAs? It was Mike Evans. Mike Evans explained a few things that are pretty notable here. He raved about the rookie wide receivers. We already know they look like they're going to be very good early on already. But he explained that Tez Johnson and Bucky, they're so good early on. They're so polished that this might be one of the best, if not the best wide receiver room that he has been a part of. And think about the wide receiver rooms he's been a part of in the past. The main one being him, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown. But he believes that this room is even better when you have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, Emeka Buka, Tez Johnson, and possibly a 6th wide receiver. But he believes this is the best wide receiver group that he has been a part of. And he talks about, seeing these young guys coming in, and they're so hungry, and that motivates him every year when you see these young guys coming in. That motivates him to continue to play at a very high level and to continue to compete every day in practice. He talked about Emeka Buka being a guy who has a running back's build. He kind of looks like a running back, but he has the hands of Chris Godwin. That's kind of his comp for this team is Chris Godwin. Eventually, maybe he plays more of the slot once Chris Godwin retires in the future. But he's a willing blocker. He has very solid hands. He can do a lot of good work inside. But again, he's a guy who knows his playbook. As Mike Evans explains, he's a smart guy. Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles have talked about. He can really play every wide receiver position on this team, X, Y, and Z there. Tez Johnson, he talked about he's a speed guy. He's quick. He has a lot of quickness to his game. 2 guys who already, again, polished rookies coming in. He likes seeing that. He talked about, his goal of, always to break the record, to earn another 1,000 yards this season, which would be the 12th year in a row. And he would break Jerry Rice's record for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons to start off a career. He wants to do it a lot earlier than he did last year. If you remember, last year it came down to the final play of the regular season against the Saints. He doesn't want it to come down like that. That's something he also stated at the end of last season. He wants to get that much, much earlier, maybe like in the third quarter, at the beginning of the third quarter of the final, a few games of the regular season. Talked about Grizz being a great leader. He believes that more deep shots, we're going to see more of a vertical passing game from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He doesn't have a contract for 2026, but he stated that's not a focus of his. DBs who have stood out. He talked about, the fact, Benjamin Morrison is out, but he probably would have been one of those standout guys also. But Jacob Parrish, he explained he's been everywhere, the young rookie corner who's received a lot of reps because of some injuries, and of course Christian Izien being out, so he's received a lot of reps at nickel. But again, he's been one of those guys who has been everywhere. Mike Evans explains during this offseason so far. And also, Mike Evans was asked about participating in the Olympics in 2028. Now there's going to be, a flag football game that NFL players can participate in. But he explains a big note here is, and he's explained this also in the offseason, I believe during the Pro Bowl time, but in 2028, which is only a few seasons from now, he's going to likely be retired. So Bucs fans, enjoy the final few years that you have of Mike Evans, as it looks like 2027, maybe he'll play in 2028 and that'll be his last season. But it looks like Mike Evans' career is a lot closer to the end than it is to the beginning. And that is all 3 days, Bucs fans, of mandatory minicamp. Again, the Buccaneers have 6 weeks from now to the start of training camp. It starts July 24th and July 25th. Those would be the first 2 days of training camp. But both those days are open to the public. August 1st is also open to the public as well. I will attempt to do my best to be there for the first 2 days of training camp for the Buccaneers and try to give you guys some good content, some clips if you're not able to attend. Bucs fans, if you enjoyed what you heard today for my breakdown of all 3 days of mandatory minicamp, please hit the like button and please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on X, please hit the follow button and also the notification button so you're notified whenever I upload brand new content there. Next week's episode is going to be a very fun one. I'm going to put together the ultimate Tampa Bay Buccaneers team from, here's a caveat though, from the Jason Light era. So that's 2014 all the way to now. Full 53-man roster, which I'm going to construct. We'll be here next week on the Fear the Bay podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Morales, signing out. Thank you for watching, and I appreciate your support.